Should be live. Let's see. Oh. That's misspelled. Let's see. There we go. All right. Let me get all this up. It was so cold today, guys. Or at least this morning. It's warmed up a little bit. But it was cold this morning. I think the funniest part about it being cold in South Florida is everybody looks goofy. They're wearing like their fur parkas and Adidas joggers. It's absolutely absurd what people wear when it's cold here. I'm like the best dressed when it happens because I've actually lived where it's been cold before. Kind of awesome. It makes me feel good about myself. Is this the right one? Yep, there it is. But I was driving around this morning, see people in fur jackets, Adidas pants. I got their $2,000 parkas on and capris. Just like, what are you wearing? What are you guys doing? It's awesome. It's like when everybody else looks fancy during the summer and I'm just wearing like shorts and a t-shirt. It's like the exact opposite when it finally gets cold here. Like 2 days out of the year. It's alright though. We'll take those 2 days. Still got my hockey puck. I haven't changed that. Big game tonight. Canes versus Panthers. We're going to manifest another win here. I guess we'll get started. I got a couple of people already in. Today is Friday, January 16th. Hope that's right. Friday, January 16th, 2026. This is episode number 38 of Addressing the Issues. You know, I got stopped in a restaurant last night. Somebody asked me, "Are you the one who does story time on TikTok?" I just smiled and laughed. I said, "No, but I do YouTube." So if one of you is using my clips on TikTok, go ahead and give me a shout out. Otherwise, I think I'm going to have to come for you. I'm going to need royalties for that. Work too hard on this for you guys to just use it for free. Use it for your own gain. That's awful. I think that's a good idea, though. I think if I can get some more clips done over this weekend, I'm probably going to start uploading them on TikTok. And, diversify the portfolio. Find some new people. Get put in the new audiences. I think that's a pretty good idea. But I thought it was so funny. They asked, do you do TikTok? I was like, no, but I do YouTube. I don't know. If one of you guys is uploading my stuff on TikTok, I'd like some credit, guys. Worked too hard on it. So I figured we'd start off with an update on Wednesday's report on cellular outages, in particular Verizon. Verizon claimed that the outage was due to a software issue and issued a $20 credit to affected customers. Verizon claims that it will conduct a full review of what happened, and customers receiving the $20 credit will be notified via text message from the company. I don't know if I'm fully buying that nationwide your company went down due to a software outage, a software issue. But I'm sure everybody will be glad to accept that $20 credit for lost time, damages, I guess. I also am worried, if it was a breach of some sort, if that $20 credit just completely exempts them from any future liabilities. But apparently after they do the review, we might know what happened. We might not. It may always just be claimed that for some reason across the nation, all their software went down at the same time. I doubt it. We've seen too many of these in recent times to think that, it's just a glitch in the system. I don't buy it. I'm sorry. But maybe it was. That's at least what they're claiming for right now. I think likely, even if it wasn't, even if it was a backdoor, we wouldn't know. Why would they tell us It'd lose a little bit of trust from them. Actually, probably a lot of trust. I'm not going to lie. People probably don't like their stuff being hacked. But I really think that $20 probably does exempt them from any other payouts, any other damages. So I guess in one of the two big stories today, we'll be covering two, larger stories. President Trump hosted a rural health roundtable today, pledging $10 billion, in healthcare funds for underserved rural areas in the U.S. But the most interesting part of this roundtable is what the president warned other countries, completely unrelated to healthcare. President Trump threatened today at the Rural Health Roundtable that if countries don't go with the U.S. acquiring Greenland, he may start tariffing them because the U.S. needs it, referring to Greenland. This echoes a recent bill drafted by Representative Randy Fine named the Greenland Annexation and Statehood Act. This bill would allow the president whatever steps are necessary to annex or acquire Greenland as a territory of the United States. And I guess presumptively by the title, give them statehood. The only issue I see is that this would make Greenland a U.S. state. I'd much more support this bill if it would make Greenland a territory like Puerto Rico or Guam. We need to rehabilitate their European brains before allowing them to vote in presidential elections, in my opinion. It would be a blue state for forever. At least until enough people move there to make money, I guess. But there are a few reasons why I think the acquisition, of Greenland is in the United States' best interest. I'll list all three of them and then we'll talk about why they matter after. Number one, missile defense. Number two, the opening of Arctic shipping lanes. And number three, probably last but not least, rare earth minerals. So why is the acquisition of Greenland important for missile defense? This may be news to most Americans, but Russia has its nuclear weapons on the north shore of the country. All of the intercontinental ballistic missiles are placed there, meaning that these weapons would fly over the North Pole and then south into the U.S. if we were ever attacked. I hope not. But that's the trajectory at which these would travel. The Earth isn't a map. I'm sure that's shocking to a lot of Americans. But, even if they were to fly over Europe and other NATO countries, I don't think they would do much as to move a finger to prevent an attack on the U.S. We can't even get them to, fund their own defense or the war in Ukraine, which they love so much. So I'm not sure how we would get them to intercept ballistic missiles that were coming for the U.S. But that's probably the main reason, especially with heightened tensions throughout the globe. I think the main reason we would need to have Greenland is for this preventative missile defense, for this supposed golden dome that has been talked about. It would provide a place that we would have at least forewarning for intervention. If not, it would be somewhere, you could actually start shooting down these missiles from before they went over Canada, before they went into the northern United States. So I think that would probably be the main reason as to why this is so important, so pending. Probably right up there with the opening of shipping lanes. So another reason that Greenland is important is the opening of Arctic shipping lanes. The U.S. is not the only country in the world that wants to control trade in the region. Russia and China have both been open about their Arctic goals, and Greenland is critical to ensure control of the region, meaning these boats pass right around Greenland. And if you want to ensure that no bad actors are going around the island, doing shipping, trying to avoid sanctions, you would need control of these shipping lanes. You would need to know what was going through them. You'd like to know it was going through all of them, every single shipping lane, but that's just probably unreasonable. So at least control, what's in your backyard, which would be Greenland. It is our hemisphere. This would be the Monroe Doctrine, the Donroe Doctrine, as it has been so eloquently renamed. But this area is important to shipping, and it will become more and more important as ice melts, sea levels change, apparently. As this ice melts, obviously, China and Russia are going to want to do trade through the region. We probably want to know what's on their ships. Probably would like to know where they are, what they're doing there. Because there's not much Canada does on that front. There's not much Denmark does on that front either. It's mostly U.S. bases in Greenland anyways. And obviously, last but not least, is rare earth minerals. China currently basically has a monopoly on rare earth minerals as it stands, currently leading the world in both extraction and refinement. Greenland would be a counterbalance that the U.S. could use to this issue, and ensuring that we had leverage on these when at the discussion table. And currently, Denmark is not capitalizing on the minerals in the region and on the island. These are minerals like copper, uranium, neodymium, silver. There's many more. Gold, diamonds. That's what you want. If you want diamonds, they're there too. But currently, this isn't being capitalized on. The U.S. isn't able to take advantage of it, even though Denmark is a NATO country. They're not extracting these. We still have to go through China to get most of them. Go through Chinese companies in Africa to get them. It would be a insurance or assurance that we would have access to these if we did have the island. So I think that's another good reason. Just a insurance policy that if China ever cut us off and we were in conflict with them, we would still be able to make technology, make weapons that we need to defend ourselves, but also make our iPhones, our electric cars we love so much, stuff like this. Countries like Russia and China, I guess if we don't do it, this is where we're going. If we don't do it, countries like Russia and China will not care if the citizens of Greenland are happy when they take over, because they're eyeing the same thing. The prize right now is Greenland. Access to the Arctic, access to these minerals. And they're not going to care what Greenland thinks when they take over. They're not going to care what Denmark thinks. While the U.S. is offering up to $100,000 per resident of Greenland, China and Russia are just going to do it by military force. They're going to control the region and exploit the minerals, possibly the people. They're not going to care whether the citizens of Denmark, or the citizens of Denmark, nor the citizens of Greenland are happy. They're going to take over, they're going to exploit the environment, and they're going to have a island that much closer to the U.S. I mean, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Canada. So it's not only the U.S. that would benefit. Canada would benefit as well. Obviously, Europe would benefit because they can't even control their own territorial waters. But Denmark has no means of ensuring this doesn't happen. But the United States actually does. We do have a formidable navy. We can control traffic in a region. We've demonstrated that in the Caribbean in the last 2 months. We've demonstrated it in the South China Sea for years now. But Denmark has no means of controlling the traffic around the island. So as this ice opens up and future and more shipping lanes, and therefore naval military lanes, open up, the Danish have no means of controlling it then. They'll have no means of controlling it now. They'll have no means of controlling it into the future. As they're already heavily subsidized on the island by the United States. And honestly, there's no need to continue this subsidization on a neglected island. Let's just take the island and actually defend it, unlike what Denmark has done. We can defend its territorial waters, we can defend the land itself, and we can use the resources on it, unlike Denmark, so we can stop paying China for them. I think this is a win-win. Obviously, we'll still do trade with NATO countries, unless we finally pull out. I'd recommend doing that, and we can just take it that way. But if we do want to continue with NATO, we'll probably need to have access to these minerals. So if we are in a prolonged conflict with, say, Russia or China, we'll be able to build the weaponry necessary as opposed to have to buy the materials from a nation that we are at war with. You're not going to get many good deals like that. They're not going to reduce the price because you're under attack by them. It's just unreasonable to expect, especially in the growing two spheres of influence, one being China, one being the United States. You don't want China's sphere of influence to be in our own backyard. It'll ask for our help, money, when China or Russia takes it. Well, duh. They'll say, oh, the U.S., please defend us. Article 5. And I don't think we should. I think NATO has been a huge scam on the United States. It costs us more and more money every year, while these nations spend less and less, until, I guess, this year when Trump took back office, he told them, you're going to spend your fair share, we're going to tariff you. So finally, maybe they'll start listening to us, because China and Russia, they don't care. They don't care what people think. They just do it, and they ask for forgiveness later from each other. If they're not gonna care what the people of Greenland think. They're not gonna care that we have to spend more money. They're not gonna care that we can't do trade. They're not gonna care that we don't have access to the Arctic. They're not gonna care that they're extracting all the minerals, all the oil in the region. Not just surrounding Greenland is the oil, but the oil in the Arctic. Some of the most vast unproven reserves on the earth. So, obviously, I guess, in the coming time, we'll see where this goes. I do believe that Denmark should just sell it off. We'll pay off their citizens in Greenland, and we'll actually reinforce military presence like we currently do for basically free. I don't think that if the U.S. is attacked that NATO is going to come to our defense. And I believe more and more people are starting to realize that. They're not very powerful. They don't spend money on their militaries. We're basically the bankroll and strong arm of the entire alliance. Well, we'll move on. We got, I guess, our second medium-sized story today. Yesterday, it was announced by Special Envoy to the United States, Steve Witkoff, that the peace deal between Israel and Gaza would be entering into the second phase. His statement reads, "Today, on behalf of President Trump, we are announcing the launch of Phase 2 of the President's 20-point plan to end the Gaza conflict, moving from ceasefire to demilitarization, technocratic governance, and reconstruction. Phase 2 establishes a transitional technocratic Palestinian administration in Gaza, the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, and begins the full demilitarization and reconstruction of Gaza, primarily the disarmament of all unauthorized personnel. The U.S. expects Hamas to comply fully with its obligations, including the immediate return of the final deceased hostage. Failure to do so will bring serious consequences." Importantly, Phase 1 delivered historic humanitarian aid, maintained the ceasefire, returned all living hostages, and the remains of 27 of the 28 deceased hostages. We are deeply grateful to Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar for their indispensable mediation efforts that made all progress to date possible. So my first question upon reading this was, what does technocratic really mean? So I went to the dictionary. I've heard of democratic, I've heard of autocratic, I've heard of theocratic, but I wasn't familiar with technocratic. So I looked it up. According to Oxford, technocratic means relating to or characterized by the government or control of society or industry by an elite of technical experts. This sounds utterly horrifying. At least you can make assumptions about the next move of an autocratic government based on the character of the leader. I don't know. I mean, do we know who these technocratic folks are? Do we know who is actually doing this? Is this like an AI program? I'm not sure what this actually is going to look like. I don't think the people of Gaza know what this is going to look like. I guess somebody somewhere, I guess Steve Witkoff knows what this is going to look like. It sounds horrifying. I can't imagine an algorithm, likely is what this will be, in my opinion. It's what it sounds like, is going to be free and fair to people. Honestly, an autocratic leader sounds a lot better than a technocracy, in my opinion. But I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. I honestly didn't think we'd see phase 2 of this plan, especially considering the bombing campaigns on Gaza have continued into this week, with reports of bombing on the same day that phase 2 was launched. But I guess we're finally tired of this war and are ready to start focusing on Iran, which will be the next big conflict in the region. Or maybe it's possible to do both if the U.S. taxpayer just pays for it all. That's obviously a possibility. But I don't understand how this is a lasting plan for peace if one side has continued to bomb the other through a ceasefire. In my honest opinion, what's going on currently is going to make a generation of Palestinians much angrier and much more spiteful than those that have already carried out the atrocities of October 7th. And then we're going to be right back to square one. We'll be having a 20-point peace plan again. I mean, maybe the plan here is a perpetual war cycle, which eventually will spare no one. And the U.S. taxpayer will just get to bankroll it all. Or maybe the technocratic government can oppress the population into subjugation. I guess that is the goal, possibly. Maybe that is the peaceful goal, is just use AI, use technology, and oppress the population. I guess that could prevent war. I guess that's fine. I think we'll find out in the coming weeks and months what this reconstruction is going to look like, and if military action has finally ceased going into phase 2 of the ceasefire. You know, most people would have thought a ceasefire would have meant military action stopped in phase 1, but maybe it just means it stops in phase 2. One can hope. I've seen a lot of awful things come out of that region, awful things come out of that conflict. So I hope the death and destruction's finally over and they will start rebuilding. I've seen awful images of before and after. But like I said, I hope it's finally over. I hope that they can start rebuilding their lives, picking up the bits and pieces and getting back to a little bit of normalcy. That's all we have on that story as of right now. Like I said, we'll see where that goes in the coming weeks and months. But as of right now, that's where we're at. Hopefully the bombing stop. Hopefully the rebuilding, the normalization of life starts. The 32 Cuban security guards killed in the raid on Maduro returned to Cuba yesterday in coffins the size of shoeboxes. Guys, I think the secret weapon may be way worse than I thought. It looks like they got shot with a shrink ray. I'm just joking. They're probably cremated, but the optics of the people returning in shoebox-sized coffins, you could carry them in two hands like this. was crazy, especially given the alleged use of secret weapons. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh goodness, the sonic weapon actually shrunk everybody. I don't think they were that short. I don't think you'd be assigned to security if you were that short. But they were returned. The optics were absolutely crazy. I had to comment on that. It was just absurd seeing them walk off the airplane with literal shoebox-sized coffins after the U.S. claimed that, I guess the U.S. didn't claim, after other people involved in the incident, I believe Venezuelans claimed that there was a secret sonic weapon. I didn't know sonic weapons would make people shrink. I don't think they did. I think they were just cremated. It looked crazy. So, in another, I guess, smaller story, the NCAA basketball sports betting scandal has had 26 men charged in a point-shaving scheme. So are you guys ready to stop gambling yet? If you've looked at any of the games, I've seen clips of the players that were, I guess, charged. It looks like they are in a Hollywood play. Honey, I Shrunk the Bodyguards. It looks like they were in a Hollywood, or not, I guess like a New York play. I mean, this looks like a Broadway production of not basketball. So I hope everybody stops gambling. It's immoral. People have said that it has been brought on. It was not brought on by the introduction of sports betting, the legalization, the promotion. I would disagree. The only way this is possible is with legalized sports betting. These were people capitalizing on legal sports betting, giving people money through point shaving in sports betting. I think the idea of sports betting has eroded many people's trust in sports. It's eroded the passion in which people play the game. Imagine you're an aspiring point guard and 3 people out of the 5 on the court with you are actively trying to throw the basketball game so that they can make money that you'll never have access to. You have aspirations of playing in the NBA, but everybody else has aspirations of getting a $10,000 cash drop from sports bettors. It's unreasonable. It's unfair to these players that actually are trying. Try not to say unfair. Nothing's fair in life. I think we all know this. But it's definitely unfair to the people who have aspirations of going pro, have aspirations of going to a larger school, a more storied basketball program, and it ruins their lives. Not only the people that have been charged, they're not going to be able to play basketball ever again, but the players that wanted to transfer out, but their team's losing by 30 points because 3 out of the 5 people on the floor with them aren't trying. So it seems like this has gone from one institution to another more and more. You've got the NBA, got now college basketball. It doesn't help with the story that the NFL is scripted, surely. But that's where we are with that. Like I said, don't condone sports betting. Never would recommend it. You could be betting on a team that's actively throwing the game, and you're trying to bet that they win. So I don't think that that's a good expenditure of your money. You could invest other ways. The stock market's a better gamble. Crypto's a better gamble. Precious metals are a better gamble. I don't know. This isn't financial advice. My only financial advice is don't sports gamble. It's really silly. It's a really silly way to waste your money. And ruin families, too. I've heard of that happening, ruining relationships, people wasting their money gambling instead of taking their girlfriends out to dinners. paying for their babies' diapers, stuff like this. There's a lot better ways to spend money. It also is exploiting the young men who didn't get the big NIL and need money. It is, in a way. I also think that they should have a little bit more self-respect and attempt to earn this NIL money. It is exploitation of them, but I'd hope that they'd have more self-respect. I'd hope that people that gamble have more self-respect than to waste their and their family's money on these silly, I guess, rushes. It's a short-term rush. Never have much long-term gain in gambling. It's kind of like the people who go to Vegas and do the little jackpot spin the wheel thing. Really silly. Really silly. And I guess we'll touch on Minneapolis before we go. Not much has came news-wise of Minneapolis, as last night was a Thursday. They did surround a couple of processing facilities. I guess that those addresses were leaked and people were then able to go and surround them last night. I don't think it's going to get any better this weekend. We still have not invoked the Insurrection Act. I do believe the first step was taken yesterday. Many people do. But I think going into the weekend, people are going to have more free time. They're going to, not take money from their day jobs because they won't be working. They'll take money from their secondary employment of being paid protesters, paid agitators. Obviously, government officials' rhetoric have not calmed down the situation. And I believe that over the weekend, we're going to see more and more people doing more and more dumb things, especially given that they won't have to work the next day. And I say, I can get arrested the night, bailed out Saturday, and get back to work on Monday. I think they'll do that same thing on Saturday night. So I think, it's going to be a long weekend in Minneapolis. I'd recommend, staying off the streets there. Probably just like hanging out with your family, doing productive things. It's always better to be productive than destructive, in my opinion. Maybe you could build Lego sets with your kids. Maybe teach them math, teach them how to read. Stuff like that if you live in Minneapolis. I think that's a way better expenditure of your time as opposed to going out and rioting, being destructive, possibly getting arrested. We've only seen one arrest, I do believe, and that was the man who stole a federal rifle from the back of the surrounded car that they had to abandon. He was easily identified, had some pretty identifiable face tattoos. So especially if you have silly face tattoos, you're going to get caught. I mean, it would have been a lot better if that dude decided to just play Legos with his kids or something. That's the funny thing, is everybody says, these people have children. Why don't you care for them? Why aren't you at home with your children? Why are you protesting instead of spending time with your children? Obviously, you have no care in the world about your children if this is what you're choosing to do instead of spending time with them. That's my opinion on that, though. I think if you're going to make the argument that they care about their kids, they should probably care about their kids. That's my opinion on that, though. Maybe they care about their kids so much that they're fine with being arrested, which makes no sense. I'm fine with not spending time with my children. I care about them so much. It's just weird. That's all we have for today. Like I said, we are going to... there won't be a guest episode. I couldn't find anybody. I'm going to start messaging people for next week, tonight. I tried to get some people on. No response from some. No, I can't do it from others. But we'll try again next week. Hopefully we'll have a guest episode then, and won't do a game night like is tomorrow night. I believe we're going to do a game night around 8 to 9 Eastern time. Just depends on when I can get everything set up and if I will have a friend to play with me. If not, I'll just do it solo. You'll get some time to hang out with me one-on-one, I guess, kind of like how these are. But I figured, if I could get somebody else on, it'd be entertaining. You get to see, I guess, how I react with other people, other peers, on a more informal basis. I think that's always fun. So we're going to have a game night tomorrow night. It'll be sometime between 8 and 9 Eastern time. I don't even know what game I'll play yet. It'll be dependent on whether I have somebody to play with or not. If it's solo, maybe NASCAR 25. If I have a guest, it'll probably be either Arc Raiders or Green Hell. That's where we're at with that. So yeah, no guest episode tomorrow. Sorry guys. I'll try and do better next week. But I will make it up to you with a game night. We'll be hanging out, hopefully attracting some new people in. You guys can stop by, chat, get to know me a little bit more. We'll talk about anything, just free flow conversation, whether it be about the game, about what's going on. I'll probably have sports up in the background or just a stream of Minneapolis. I can commentate on that while we play. I guess, while I play. Yeah, that is the plan for tomorrow. So if you do want to tune in, I'd be more than glad to host you guys, hang out with you, chat, talk shop, whatever you want to do. But that's the plan for tomorrow. Our next live episode will be Monday at 4:45 Eastern time. And yeah, that's all we have for today. So make sure you guys are dropping a like, subscribing on YouTube, following on Twitch. Appreciate all the comments you guys make. Keeps it entertaining, keeps me on my toes. I appreciate, I guess, most of all, your viewership. Always pushes the algorithm up when people are actually watching, so I guess that's the most important to me. Secondarily, dropping a like, subscribing, turn on notifications, make sure you're coming back. I appreciate that as well. So I thank you guys. Yeah, that's all we have for today. Can't think of anything else. So I guess to all my people on the East Coast, I hope you get home safe. To my people further west, I hope you finish up your workday strong and get home safe as well. And I guess this will be the last time we'll throw this little mantra in there, but be useful. Thank you guys. I'll see you again either tomorrow night around 8 to 9 if you want to tune in for game night. If you're busy, if you've got something else you'd rather do, I understand. I'll see you again at 4:45 on Monday for episode number 39 of Addressing the Issues.